Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here this morning to share a fun exercise, what I think is a fun exercise around reimagining meetings. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. So hold for a minute. Can someone give me a thumbs up if you're seeing presentation view?
I can see it. Looks good.
Great. Well, I'm Jessica Dang. My pronouns are she, her, and I am with the Liquor and Cannabis Board. And as someone mentioned earlier, I used to be part of the Results Washington team and was there for about 10 years. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk about design thinking, which I really have a heart for, and creating better experiences through meetings. So I'm really excited to be here today. So let's just jump right in. We don't have a ton of time and we've got a bit to cover. So what is design thinking? So I really like this definition I came across a few years ago that says design thinking is a problem-solving approach focused on creating experiences to better address human needs. And those experiences can be things, tools, roles, spaces can be also experiences. But today we're going to be focusing on an important experience that we all have every day, which are meetings. I'm going to touch briefly on the design thinking mindset. So very similar to some of the things that Garrett shared with human-centered design. Design thinking, you really want to put people first. You're focused on understanding people and their needs, and then designing solutions to better meet those needs. You want to keep an open mind. You want to fail forward fast. So try something, see if it works. If it doesn't, learn, iterate, and create something new. And it helps you see things differently. It helps you kind of reframe problems in a way that you can think more creatively about how to solve them. And instead of break the rules, I might say here, we want to challenge organizational norms. Might be another way of saying break the rules. Oops, sorry. I have too many. If you only knew how many tabs are open right now. Making sure I'm hitting the right thing here. So here are the 5 phases of design thinking. So you start with empathy. So the first step is to empathize. And this is where you really seek to understand people deeply. So what are their needs? What are their beliefs? What are their experiences? And how does that shape how they are viewing the process the process or the product that you're trying to develop for them. The define phase. So here's where you discover the opportunity, what you want to work on. So as Garrett said earlier, this is where you fall in love with the problem, as in the define phase. Then you take that into the ideate phase, where you spend time doing various activities. And we're not going to go into activities and stuff this morning. But there are numerous activities that you can use to come up with ideas for how to better meet the needs of the people you're designing for. And then prototype. So prototyping is all about learning and experimenting your way forward. So you pick a solution from the ideate phase, you build a rough prototype of what that would be, and you test it with people so you can bring it back to your customers or the people you're designing for and say, hey, as Garrett, as they were able to do, hey, how does this work for you? And then if it's not, then kind of go take that feedback and you're kind of back in that loop. As Garrett also mentioned, it's an iterative process. It's not something that's linear. One of the things I really like about design thinking is I believe it's really scalable. So you can spend 2 days, 2 hours. Today, we're going to spend about half an hour together running through these phases to redesign a meeting. So you can, at any point in your problem-solving journey, if you find yourself stuck, you might want to think about using a human-centered approach and applying these design thinking phases to your problem. Okay, so that's a quick overview of design thinking. Now we're going to talk about what we're going to be doing today. So over the next 20-ish or so minutes, I believe that's about how much time I have. Talia, you might have to give me a time check here and there.
And that's okay if you go a little over. Take your time.
Okay. Okay, we are going to spend time today reimagining an experience, a meeting that you have the ability to influence. So here are the steps we're going to go through today. So we're going to clarify. So we're going to get really clear and articulate what the purpose and desired outcome is of your meeting. We're going to prioritize the information you need to share. We're going to focus on participants' emotions and behaviors. Then we're going to design for the behaviors you want to shift. And then at the end of our time today, you're going to actually have an outline of the meeting that you can prototype and test at the next time you hold this meeting, or for, the next time you have this meeting. So you'll walk away today with a plan, and we're not just gonna sit here and listen to me talk. You're gonna have plenty of time to do the exercise. So first things first, I'm going to drop into the chat the link to the worksheet.
I might have just done that, Jessica.
Okay, just want to make sure. Does everybody? Okay. And here's a link to the handout directly. It should be a fillable PDF. So I went through and made sure that you would be able to fill that in. Okay. Okay. So while everybody is pulling that up, let's talk about our exercise today. Sorry, I have so many tabs open. I can't see what I'm trying to see here. Okay. Okay, so we're going to spend this morning curating a new meeting experience. So you're going to have an opportunity to breathe new life into a part of your day. So what I'd love for you to do is to think about how many meetings you host or that you're part of every day, week, month. It's a lot. And chances are that there are opportunities to improve those meetings. So what I'm going to do is give you about 2 minutes now. So to pull up your worksheet, and then I want you to identify a meeting that you can influence in the next month. So you might want to consider some reoccurring meetings, such as team meetings or project meetings. Those meetings are often ripe for some new thinking to be brought to them. So I'm going to turn on some music here, and then you will have 2 minutes. I'm going to stop sharing just for a second. And I'm going to set a timer here for 2 minutes. So 2 minutes to pull up the worksheet and to identify a meeting. Oh. Okay. Time is up. Okay. Okay, so next we are going to move into creating a POP. So a POP stands for purpose, outcomes, and process. We're going to create POP for our meeting. First, let's talk for a second about what a meeting is. So a meeting is defined as an act or process of coming together. But I think you could also think of a meeting as a gathering. So there's this really great book called The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. And she talks about gatherings, meetings/gatherings. And she defines gathering as the conscious bringing together of people for a reason. She goes on to say that gatherings shape the way we think, feel, and make sense of our world. So that's some pretty kind of a pretty heavy way to look at a meeting, but I think it helps frame it in a way to show like the power that we have in 30 minutes or 60 minutes that we have with individuals in a room. And we really need to make that time matter. So we're going to move on and state the purpose and desired outcomes for the meeting. So why state a purpose and outcome? You might say, Jessica, this seems very, very obvious. Well, I would offer that probably a lot of meetings that we go to have assumed purposes. You just kind of show up and everybody kind of thinks this is why we're here, but I think there's some power in articulating what that is. So it level sets expectations so everybody knows what to expect and provides an anchor. So if the meeting kind of starts going off course or people are participating in a way that's not getting us to where we need to be, it provides an anchor for that. There's a format here suggested on your worksheet, here on the slide rather, for articulating meeting outcomes. So you could, it's kind of a mad lib of sorts. So we will successfully achieve this meeting's purpose of XYZ if we do the following things. So let's look at an example really quick here. So here's an example of a meeting purpose. So the purpose of this meeting is to gather lessons learned on the strategic planning process. And a desired outcome would be the team has an action plan that addresses areas of improvement. So this is really clear for your meeting participants. This is what we're here to do. And we know we're successful when we've met this objective. Let's see, there's something here in the chat. Oh, yes. Priya Parker is amazing. Yes, and she also has a great podcast. Thanks, Samantha. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a few minutes here. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to articulate your meeting's purpose. So why are you holding this meeting? And then the desired outcomes. What are you hoping to accomplish during this meeting? So 3 minutes to work on that. So I'm going to set my timer here. And go ahead and start on your purpose and desired outcomes. Okay, a little less than a minute. Okay, come back together. Can folks give me a thumbs up? If is this am I giving you enough time? Too much? So if I'm giving you enough time, will you give me a thumbs up? Do folks have enough time? Okay. Okay. Great. Okay, so now we are going to move on to the next part of our worksheet here. So you should have the purpose and desired outcomes of your meeting. I'm wondering how that was for some of you. Would anybody could drop into chat? Was that easy? Was it did it give you a moment to pause, thinking about a meeting you probably attend all the time and not sure what the purpose of that meeting was? Was that a helpful step for you? So a couple chat that it's helpful. Okay, good. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the next part here. Sorry. Okay, now we're going to move on to addressing emotions and behaviors. So this is part of the process part of the POP. So we did purpose, outcomes, and now we're going to focus on the process of our meeting. So now we're going to spend some time reflecting on thinking about who is attending the meeting and how are they entering, meaning what emotions and behaviors are they bringing to the meeting, and what do they need? So in thinking about your meeting that you've chosen, I want you to reflect on the emotions and behaviors you have observed. But be careful of assumptions here. So if you're not sure how people are feeling or what they need, simply ask. You can set up some time. People always, I find, appreciate a conversation about a meeting that they're a part of so that you can use their time more wisely, right? So I find that people are always willing to have a conversation. Something else that you might think about here at this juncture is who's actually missing from your meeting. So who's not at the table and what perspective are you missing? So thinking from like an inclusion standpoint, who's not at the table and who should be there. So you'll reflect on the emotions and behaviors and then document those. So you can see the example on your worksheet there that they've identified. So we'll just do this one together here. So they identified the team's data analyst, the emotion. So what their emotion they're bringing is that they're anxious about the new project, and the way they behave is they're generally quiet during the meeting. So you're just making small notes about the individuals who are coming to the meeting. And this is kind of your empathy stage of design thinking in this worksheet here. I see there's a few things popping up in the chat. Okay. Oh, that's a great tip there. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is it Tari? It says tries to include outcome needed when communicating.
Yep, it's
with leadership. That's a great one. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give you another 3 minutes. So document who's coming to the meeting, as many as you can in 3 minutes. So who's coming, what emotions they're bringing, what emotions and behaviors that they're bringing. And this is going to help us to design for different behaviors and emotions in the next part of our work. I'm going to turn my camera off when I set the timer, but I'm still here and you can ping me if you have any questions. So 3 minutes. Okay, about 1 minute. Okay, let's wrap that up. There was a question I just saw in the chat asking, are the behaviors and emotions we consider to be about the meeting topic agenda or other outside emotions people are bringing in, or both? And I think you can consider both when doing this quick analysis. Okay. Okay, we're going to move right along here. So now that we have done the analysis to understand how people are feeling and the behaviors that they're bringing, we now want to articulate the emotional, informational, and behavioral shifts we want to see during the meeting. So, informational. So what needs to be known or understood? So what do we need to share? Or make known. Emotional, what do you want people to feel or experience during your meeting? And then what do you want people to do? So those are the things we want to consider. So the example they have here for the team's data analyst, they want her to see the project goals and timeline. They want her to feel heard and supported. And then they want her to actively share her perspective. So those are the behavioral shifts that they're looking for during the meeting. Let me just check the chat here. Oh, good. I'm glad you're finding it to be valuable. Okay, so I'm going to have to start shortening up time here. So you might not be able to complete this for every single person or category of people that are coming to your meeting. But think about what are those behaviors they currently have, and then what are the shifts you want to see, and document those shifts. So I'm going to give you I'm going to give you 2 minutes here. And if anybody has any questions about the exercise, you just feel free to raise a hand or unmute yourself. That'll be the easiest way for me to see if you've got a question. Okay, 2 minutes.
At Fred Meyer, we want our fresh produce to meet your expectations, which is why we do up to a 27.
Thank you for the ads, YouTube. Okay, a little less than a minute. Okay, wrap up your notes here. Okay, let's move to the next phase here. So now we're going to move into what we would consider the ideate phase of our exercise here this morning. So we're going to create some how might we questions. So how might we questions are used in the ideate phase of design thinking to help you generate creative ideas to the problem you're solving. So a good how might we question invites creativity. It reframes the problem or opportunity. So going back to the design thinking mindsets helps us see something differently. And it demonstrates curiosity. So reframing the problem or opportunity. So an example of reframing might be, you could have a how might we question that the problem could be that people don't turn their cameras on during the problem. One of the problems you've identified could be that people don't turn their cameras on during the meeting. So instead of saying, how might we encourage people to turn on their cameras, you could reframe that based on what you know. You might say, how might we help people feel safe to be their authentic selves? And maybe in solving for that, you might discover ways to make people more comfortable that they might want to turn on their camera. So it just reframes the problem a little bit differently. So the example that they have here, building off of that data analyst, says, how might we make sure that everyone feels heard during the meeting? So that's a question. How might we ensure that our data analysts feel supported? How might we reduce data analyst anxiety? So remember, one of the things they documented a couple phases back was that they were anxious about the project. How might we share and spread the excitement of the researchers? So that's and how might we question that's building off of a good trait that you're seeing. If you're feeling stuck in writing a how might we question, you might go back to the last COP that we had in February. Jennifer Phillips talked about mental valleys, and she talked about kind of trying on some different perspectives. And one of the things you can do is maybe put on a different lens of like a different profession. So you could think about like how might a teacher design this meeting, or how might a teacher make everyone feel like they belong? And that is a good question that might help generate some different ideas. So I'm going to give you about, I know, Talia, we are running low on time here. I'm going to give
That's
you
okay. It's valuable.
about a minute and a half to come up with a few how might we questions. They don't have to be perfect, but just kind of put you in this different frame of mind to be thinking about the problem. And then we're going to go into brainstorming those questions right after. So I'm going to give you a minute and a half to come up with some how might we questions. Okay, so timer is set, a minute and a half. Okay, wrap up those thoughts there. So you should have hopefully a couple how might we questions, one around the emotions you want to shift and one around the behaviors you want to address during the meeting. So now, again, for the sake of time, choose one how might we question to explore. And then in the boxes below, brainstorm a range of activities that would answer that how might we question. So how might we, going back here, so how might we reduce, anxiety? So maybe one of the ways you reduce anxiety in the meeting is providing things ahead of time. So think about the time before your meeting and things that you can do, in the wrap up of your meeting. So that's all kind of included in this spectrum of your meeting. So thinking about what you can do before, after, and during your meeting, activities you can do that address the how might we question that you choose. If we had more time today, we could do some great sharing, I'm sure, about different activities that people could do in a hybrid environment, in person or online, but we don't have time today. So just think about using visuals, sound, as it says here. You can use whiteboarding, other activities, as it says on your worksheet there. So I'm going to give you about another minute and a half just to brainstorm some activities you can try. Don't judge your ideas, just write them down. Okay, about 30 more seconds. Okay. Well, we have one more slide here, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna run through it, but we're not gonna have time to do it. But I would encourage you just to spend a few minutes after this meeting to go ahead and outline your meeting. So the worksheet has space for you to put the activities up here on the top that you're going to do. So what activities support the informational, emotional, and behavioral needs of your meeting participants? So you can plot those activities along that timeline. You can then plot that information. So like what needs to be known or understood throughout your meeting at those different points of your meeting. What do you want people to feel? Or what do you want them to experience at those different points of the meeting? And then what do you want people to do? So that's kind of bringing everything together in this outline. So I know we are up on time, but I would love to hear real quick if anybody has any quick questions or any reflections you'd like to share.
Lots of thank yous rolling in the chat.
Well, thank you. There's a couple other slides, just so you know. I did have a resource slide that has some links. So the presentation was based off of an article and a worksheet, and then these links take you to some good sources of information to learn more. So I will stop sharing. I really appreciate your time today.
That was so awesome.